So it's funny that we have the Hebrews rejecting the Messiah, and we have the Christians rejecting the Most High.
So I'm going to make the covenant that I told Abraham. I'm going to make that covenant rest upon Jacob. Now, Jacob had 12 sons, and I'm going to give the heritage to them. And through them, I'm going to establish my nation, the 12 tribes. That's where the covenant is going to. So it's just the fulfilling and the fulfillment of the promise. And if I misspoke, Marah, you still here, so you can back me up if you need to, or clean it up if you need to. But that's the understanding that I have.
No, it's really not much to clean up. You just said it in your own way. Um, this is going back to why we stress the culture so much here at the Torah Group, because when you look at the culture of our people, everything is really running through Adam. It's just that each generation has to have. I'm going to borrow a phrase from one of my brothers. Each generation, the Most High raised up a covenant bearer. Which one of this generation is going to be the righteous one for me to bestow upon him and renew the covenant that was made with Adam after Adam fell? You know, the Most High promised Adam, I'm going to bring your seed back to this garden. I'm going to restore your seed, the greatness that you lost, that you forfeited. So now each generation is just a new covenant bearer being born, but really all the covenant belongs to Adam, and now we just identify with the closest elder for our generation. And right now, the closest elder of our generation, I would say, is Abraham. Well, that we can recall Abraham, Isaac, and then because we're Judah, we would say Judah, and then Yahushua. They're just covenant bearers. Yahushua is the last reminder of the covenant that I haven't forgotten what I promised to my righteous. So you was dead on. You was dead on.
Does that make sense, Miss Corinne?
Yes, it does. I was just wondering if the head had something to do with rulership and kingship, but I'll have to
Yeah, well,
dig
the
that
the
out a
it
little
in the
bit
sense of
further on.
the it there is the covenant. So that's why he's just saying he's making the covenant rest upon the head of Jacob. I get what you're saying, because upon the head would be like a crown. Um, but it's just saying that the covenant is fulfilled and playing out through the sons of Jacob.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And so continuing on, chapter 45 and 5 says, he made Moses to hear his voice and brought him into the dark cloud and gave him commandments before his face, even the law of life and knowledge, that he might teach Jacob his covenants and Israel his judgments. Verse 17 says, he gave unto him his commandments and authority in the statutes of judgments, that he should teach Jacob the testimonies and inform Israel his laws. 22. But Yahweh will never leave off his mercy, neither shall any of his works perish, neither will he abolish the posterity of his elect, and the seed of him that loveth him he will not take away. Wherefore he gave a remnant unto Jacob, and out of him a root unto David. Nadazar Marah. And Marah, if you could, it says, neither will he abolish the posterity of his elect and his seed. Could you explain what that means?
It's just in their pagan tongue, he's letting them know I'm never gonna this replacement theology that these Roman Catholics have come up with, telling people that it doesn't matter about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because the Most High Jesus Christ has come and gave us a spiritual church. This verse right here just pretty much destroys that false doctrine. The Father says he will never abolish. Posterity is a pagan term, but it goes back to loins, to genes of a man. So we got confirmation after confirmation that Father says he's never going to eradicate, he's never going to replace the posterity of Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob.
Con.
Water.
So these are just some quick precepts that we've spoken about before that is in the conventional text in the book of Psalms. And we definitely love to use this one where it says, he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. Verse 20, he have not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh. So I don't know if you're actually, whoever's paying attention. In the beginning, I was mentioning how Uncle Edris, he was asking the Most High, like basically saying, I know these other nations, they don't know you. Or he was asking them, is there any other nation that have known your ways? And the reason why he would ask such a question is because of a verse like this. He have not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known him. The other nations have not known him. So Esdras is asking, like, what's going on? Is there another nation? Because the scriptures is saying that it's not. So Psalm 78:5, it says, for he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to our children or their children. And then Psalms 103:7, he made known his ways to Moses and his deeds unto the people of Yashar'Allah. So before we go back into another brief conversation with Esdras, did anybody have any comments?
I just want to point out and just remind her, because can you go back one slide up? So these precepts showing that he's only dealing with Israel, these writers are writing in their time period. If we go back to Noah's pre-flood, he was accepting all of those men as his people. So we always got to keep history to the forefront, because we get these I hate to make it confrontational or contentious, but we get Christians, especially the seminary people, they will read this and they keep going back to Noah and they keep going back to Adam, and you have to keep history at the forefront. He gave that generation a chance. Now these writers are writing for their generation. What their understanding has been, that because those other generations failed to come back, and like I brought out a couple minutes ago, even after the flood, you seen how he killed everyone, and after the flood, that generation after the flood became even more filthy. So now we bring it up to this generation, and the Most High says, okay, I'm done with the others. I'm focusing on this grape. So we just want to be fair. And so I know people, there's a lot of scriptures and there's a lot of information, and the babe or the noob or the critic may say, well, what about this and what about that? These records, our tribal declaration, these are Israelite scrolls written by Israelites. So you got to understand the history. The Most High didn't just decide yesterday, I'm only dealing with Israel. He gave those generations years. I mean, how long was Noah preaching to the people, family?
120.
120,
120 years.
years. So don't, it's like our earthly parents. Our earthly parents didn't whoop us right away. You got that look. Every mother has that look. Your father got that look. And so for these Gentiles or these other nations who are saying we're making it all about Israel, the Father gave these generations, these past generations, plenty of time. And now bring it up to these current writers, it's only Israel he's working with. Now, is he full of grace and mercy? Yes. Yes. But it doesn't change the context. Israel is the grape. Israel is the grape. I just want to keep that to the forefront.
Colin, I appreciate it bringing us up to this point. I really appreciate it. So back to Second Esdras. This is chapter 5, verse 23 through 27. Verse 23 says, "And said, O Yahweh, thou bearest rule of every wood of the earth, and of all the trees thereof, thou hast chosen thee only one vine, and of all the lands of the whole earth, or the whole world, thou hast chosen thee one pit, and of all the flowers thereof, one lily." Verse 25, "And of all the depths of the sea, thou hast filled thee one river, and of all the builded cities, thou hast hallowed Zion unto thyself." Verse 26, "And of all the fowls that are created, thou hast named thee one dove, and of the cattle thou hast provided thee one sheep." Verse 27, "And among all the multitudes of people, thou hast gotten thee one people, and unto this people whom the Most High loved, he gave a law that is approved above all." So this is summing up exactly what Marah just said. Exactly what Marah just said. Out of all the multitudes of the people in the earth, the Most High took for himself one people, and he took one city and hallowed those things unto himself. So these are just some quick hitters before we transition. If I could borrow Brother Abishai for this, if you don't mind, if you're free, if you're able. These are just some quick hitters to why does this matter? And you can get Romans 3, I'll get Romans 9, and then you get 11, and I'll get Corinthians.
Romans 3, 1 and 2. Just a second.
No rush.
Romans chapter 3, 1 and 2. It reads, "What advantage then hath the Jew? Or what profit is there in circumcision? Much every way.
Much every way.
Chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God."
So I just wanted to bring some of these out because these are so-called New Testament scriptures. And we have the champion of the so-called New Testament, according to a lot of the Christians and the doctrine that we were taught. And he's saying, why does it matter? He says, or what is the importance? Read it one more time, Abishai or Abshayah.
Verse 2, "Much every way, chiefly or mainly, because that unto them were committed the oracles of the Most High."
So just everything we've read up until this point, he is once again affirming and establishing that the ways, the laws, the statutes, the commandments, the ordinances, the oracles were given to one people, the Most High's people, Israel, Yasha Allah. So it's still important even during the New Testament time. So we'll quickly go to Romans 9 and verse 3. it says, "For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are the Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants, the giving of the law, the service of the Most High, and the promises." And he says, "Whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, Christ came, who is over all, the Most High, blessed forever. Amen." Verse 6, "Not as though the word of Yah have taken none effect, for they are not all Israel which are of Israel, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called." And so here again in this, like Marah was saying, he is reiterating the same thing that we just read from before, how it went from Abraham, how it went from Isaac, and then it goes all the way down to Jacob. And it's just, these are just quick hitters, especially for the class here. We've read these before, but I wanted to point out that you're getting the same language in the so-called New Testament. So Abshayah, you got Romans 11:1.
Oh, yeah, I like this one. This is a good one. Romans 11:1. I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Con. And he follows that up in Corinthians to say, verse 22, "Are they Hebrews? Ibariam? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I." So I just wanted to point out that language in the New Testament, he's still saying that it's important that we are the children of the promise. We are the sons of Jacob or Jacob, Isaac, Abraham. It's still important and it still matters. Did anyone have any comments?
Yeah, just referring back to the conversation yesterday on this Christian channel, uh, they were how can I say this without trying to attack? Um, the same scriptures we've been pulling, like you're pulling here, all these witnesses that you're giving us, and we're saying that Israel holds a higher place over other people. Now this seminary trained highly popular non-melanated Christian, he has classes on his YouTube channel and his platform is huge. He's pulling the same verses, and I just, if you guys been around, you probably heard of him. His name is John MacArthur. He's a highly acclaimed Christian theologian.
I heard of him. I used to watch him when I was a Christian.
All the seminary students, they use his commentaries, his books. So yesterday, the brother on his channel, he was clipping John MacArthur's classes, and he was like, "Listen, we got to deal with this. The same verses that these black Israelites are pulling, he's pulling, and saying that Israel is a special person, opposed to the Christian dogma that the church has replaced Israel." Now, I don't know if John MacArthur goes as far as to identify who the Israelites or who he think the Israelites are, but just on the foundation that John MacArthur is debunking Christian dogma that the church, the Gentile church, has replaced the Israelites. This is huge in Christendom. This is huge. So now, okay, let's just leave identity alone. Let's not even focus on what the Israelites look like. Can we all read these same witnesses and come to an understanding, if we're being objective with no indoctrination in the so-called Old and the so-called New Testaments, it seems like these Israelites, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever they look like, they hold a hierarchy with the Most High over the other nations. And now this Christian, this popular John MacArthur is pulling the same scriptures we are. The church got to deal with it. So this is right on time.
And there's another famous pastor who passed away a while back, Chuck Missler, and he teaches the same thing. It's just that I think he still believes the 48s are the people, but he teaches the same thing that you're saying MacArthur is pushing, that the church has not usurped the promises given unto the Israelites, no matter who they are. And that right now would be the important part, to show that if someone else of another nation, it's not coming just from Black people trying to look for an identity, but other people who are studying in the theological schools, they're seeing that it's not a replacement situation where the church has replaced the Most High's people. So I agree with that. Good comment on that. All right, so continuing with the grape of the cluster, this is Baruch or Barak, one of the scribe for Jeremiah, and he's just speaking how it's just some language that I wanted to bring up, that he wrote in Baruch chapter 3, verse 35 through 37. He says, "This is our Alahayim." Alahayim Noah, as Marah would say. And this is none other to be accounted of in comparison of him. He hath found out all the way of knowledge and have given it unto Jacob his servant and to Israel his beloved. And afterward did he show himself upon the earth and converse with men. What does that sound like to you, Marah?
I mean, I don't mean to laugh because it's black and white. I mean, you don't need a bunch of fancy Greek terms to understand what he's saying. Like he only if he don't show you how to please him, how can you please him?
Mm-hmm.
So like this is textual criticism 101.
And does anybody see the Messiah in this? Do you see the Messiah in this?
That free talking about that phrase, the way of knowledge,
where he said, well, but he says he found out the way of knowledge and gave it to Jacob his servant and to Israel his beloved. And then it says afterward did he show himself upon the earth and converse with men.
If you seen me, you seen the Father.
Absolutely.
So just a little context clues for the way I teach. Majority of the time, if it's highlighted in yellow, this is not all the time though, because I'm limited on colors. But that for me, it's a reminder that this is dealing with the Messiah. And then that's just me, y'all. We family, so y'all will get to know me continually as when I teach. So that's just a little hint. But when I was reading it, I was like, it says he have found out all the way of knowledge and given it to Jacob his servant and Israel his beloved, and he showed himself on the earth and conversed with men. I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like the son right there.
Now see, I'm gonna tell you because I've been dealing with these people and listening to these people so long. I'm gonna tell you how they would twist this. Now let's make this clear for the listening audience and those who are not familiar. Jacob here is referring to the 12 tribes of Israel. And this Israel is referring to the son, his beloved. And the way we're marrying this is when we go to Isaiah chapters 44 through 45, the Messiah is telling us he surnamed us after him. So this one of the son's name that the Christian church don't realize, the son's name is Israel or Yasharallah. He's the first power or prince of Yah. And then he tells us in Isaiah 45 that he surnamed us. But the Christian church will twist this and say, no, this is referring to Jacob before he was converted. And now Israel, once he was converted, and this is, it's like they're going to say this is the same person. And this is not the same person. This is a Hebrewism. This is a Hebrewism, and Shemaiah is dead on. Jacob here, the servant, is the 12 tribes, and to Israel, his beloved, is the son. And like he says, I see his scheme now. He put verse 37 in yellow because the son, Yahushua, was showed himself upon the earth. So that's how we married this. We're not indoctrinating. We're putting precept upon precept. This is good work.
Khan. So Baruch continue with his theme here. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. He says, "This is the book of the commandments of Yah, and the law that endureth forever. All they that shall keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die." So earlier, if anyone was paying attention, I said that the commandments are the way to life. And this is just another precept to that. All they that shall keep the commandments shall come to life. And the spirit, another lesson eventually down the line, is that they say you don't need the commandments for salvation, some people. And everything I read and the spirit shows me that is not true, because how can you come to life without the commandments? How can you be saved or have salvation without the commandments? So it says those who leave the commandments shall die. So again, this is the book of the commandments of Yah and the law that endureth forever. That's a cut for the law is done away with. It says the law endureth forever. The law and the Torah is the Son also. The Messiah is the way, the truth, and the light. So all they that shall keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die. Turn thee, O Jacob, repent, Jacob, Tashab, La Yaqub, and take hold of it, Halakha, La Naraya, walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. So the light of your path is the commandments. The sun represents the commandments. So we need to walk in that light. We need to repent and follow the way of the Son, which is the commandments, thus we may be illuminated. And using that language, illuminated, it shows me how the secret societies try to use those terms, because they're being brought to a certain light by the evil spirits. And they've been given knowledge by Hasatan and his ministers. But we are supposed to walk in the light, the true light of the Messiah, thus we may be illuminated. And let me see. So any comments on that? Because I think the next one is changing the subject a little bit.
Just remind me before when you wrapped, I want to share, because you touched on commandments is life, and I want to display it in the Hebrew characters, just to confirm that it is life. When we come back to the original language of creation, commandments for the Hebrews is life, and we're going to show it on the screen.
And if somebody had a comment, I don't know if that's a new comment in the chat.
That was me.
I got you. So now we want to speak. It's the same book, the same few verses, Baruch, chapter 4, 1 through 5. But verse 3 says, "Give not thine honor to another, nor the things that are profitable unto thee to a strange nation. O Israel, happy are we, for the things that are pleasing to Yah, the commandments, are made known to us. Be of good cheer, my people, the memorial of Israel." So the Most High is telling you that this is yours. These are the things that will make you profitable. Do not be quick or haste Do not give what is profitable unto you to a strange nation. And we know that the commandments, the covenant, the promises, the land, that is our inheritance. So we have a lot of people who, because of the way of Christianity, has given into the way of replacement theology, some knowingly and some unknowingly. But we are to not give our commandments, our heritage, and the things that are profitable and the ways that are made pleasing to the Messiah to another nation. So as we continue on, is the Most High unfair? Is the Most High unfair? And what about the other nations? Isaiah chapter 40, verse 17 says, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. And the reason why this makes so much sense, if you've been following what we've been saying the whole time, and if you need to go back and watch the replay, please do so. But if we're keeping the history and the story in context, pre-flood, all nations had a chance to have the ways and understanding of the ways of the Most High. And that's what Marah has repeated as well. And they went astray from the Most High. And even after Noah and his sons populated the earth, they all at the same time again had a chance as well, but they chose to go even more wicked than the first generation. So now after that, the Most High has chosen one grape of the cluster and has given his ways from one man that he found righteous in the earth, Abraham, and unto his seed. Now the Most High is telling the prophet Yashayah, Hawashai, Isaiah, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. So what about the other nations? Esdras continues the conversation as well. So we're back in Esdras, second Esdras, chapter 6, verse 54 through 58. Is the Most High unfair? And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest master or Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people of whom thou hast chosen. So notice here how he says all people come from Adam and the people who you chose. So it would have been no need to separate there if there was no difference. And verse 55 says, all this have I spoken before thee, O Yahweh, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Please forgive the typo there. And as for the other people, what about the other nations, which also come of Adam? Thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and has likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So again, Esdras is repeating the same language that Isaiah has mentioned. And just for clarity, if you know the Torah, I wanted to put this in here. I just time constraints, but the Torah already included a place for the other nations. The strangers who wanted to cleave unto the Most High's people already had a place in the Torah. And I do have some scriptures at the end that confirms the Torah laws being fulfilled even in the end times as well. So the strangers who sojourn among you to be treated as one who is of the nation is already included. So when the Most High is talking about the other nations are nothing, we already have the history as to why, but that doesn't reject a person who wants to cleave unto the ways or an individual, but the nation as a whole, we already know all of our nation is not even cleaving whole to the laws of the Most High, so let alone the other nations as a whole. So I just wanted to clarify that. Verse 57. And now, O Yahweh, behold, these heathens, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be masters or lords over us and to devour us. But we, thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, and thy only begotten and thy fervent lover are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? And how long shall this endure? So I wanted to put that part in here because it's going with the theme of, is the Most High unfair? And Esdras was asking the questions that I would ask. And he's saying, well, if how long do we have to endure this? How long do we have to endure this captivity? And if you continue on chapter 7, what Marah was bringing out, the Most High answers his question, but that's not necessarily fits the theme of what this discussion is about. But you can go back and read it for yourself, that the Most High is explaining that just like there is no slack in the beginning of a ring, there's no slack in the end. So his judgment, he already has measured the times, and the Most High won't interrupt his measurement of the times for anyone. So he already knows that the reward of the wicked and how it's going to play out, but he also knows the reward of the just and the righteous and those who can endure unto the end, how that's going to play out as well. And that's what he ended up telling Esdras. And please read it for yourself. He told him, he said, don't even focus on the reward or the judgment of the wicked, but how the righteous will be rewarded in their time. But I just wanted to put this in there because it's not just other nations when we speak out and say the Most High is our Elohim and he's for us, that the other nations say is the Most High unfair. But people in our own nation is asking, is this seems unfair that we're being punished by the other nations or downtrodden, and we supposed to be your people. But the Most High, I wanted to show it on both sides that he is the author and the finisher of this work and this word. So he knows the judgments and the times that they are to play out and how long we must endure. So if we skip a couple chapters and go to 9, it's continuing that same theme. And the Most High is letting him know, when I brought this out a couple weeks back, he says, verse 20, so I considered the world, and behold, there was great peril because of the devices that were coming to it. And I saw, and I spared it greatly, and have kept me a grape of the cluster and a plant of a great people. Now let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain, and let my grape be kept, and my plant, for with great labor have I made it perfect. So the Most High is saying, once he saw the perils before the flood and after the flood, he decided to choose a righteous remnant. And through that remnant, he decided that he was gonna basically put in work to grow and cultivate that people by giving them the law, statutes, and commandments so that we would be without excuse. So he's saying, and earlier we went to a verse, and it's been so many verses, but the Most High said his work shall not fail. And me knowing what I had before, I didn't want to jump ahead, but we are a work of the Most High, and the Most High says that his work shall not fail. Then he's not going to let us fall or let us fail as a nation as a whole, because he is basically putting all the time and effort into this group of people. And he says with great labor. So that means he's saying I did some strong work for these people. And he says I have made it perfect. Perfect don't mean without mistakes. And Marah can clear that up in the end. But perfect, is that Tamah, Marah?
Tamah.
Yeah, Tamah. And it's being, marked by the power of the Most High. So being marked by the power, you're marked by the power of the Most High if you're open and awakened to the knowledge of his ways, and you're following the laws, statutes, and commandments to the best of your abilities, even in the midst of your enemies, even when you're still being shot and killed and gunned down, even when you're in the hands of your enemies who can make rules and regulations in the earth to destroy you. You still are following and seeking the Most High and rejecting the ways of the world. So he's saying, with great labor have I marked you with my power. That is being made perfect. So we shall not fail. Anybody have any comments about that before we continue on? I think we're getting near the end here.
I just want to put it out there that with all this information, with all these witnesses that you pulled, we're asking our critics, we're asking our counterparts who are saying that we're making up these doctrines. It's all about Israel, it's all about Israel, and now the finished works of Christ has done away with nations. We're asking these people, our brothers and sisters who are following Christianity, can you produce texts? Can you produce witnesses where Christ has overturned these prophecies that all the nations are nothing? Or can you show me something that reads, all the nations are nothing but spit, but I'm going to send my son to redeem the world? That's what we're holding everyone's feet to the fire. Whether you be a mega million TV evangelist, whether you be a doctor seminary in a hole in the wall, we don't care how big or small you are. If you're teaching the Christian dogma that Christ or the finished works of Christ have redeemed everybody who believes on him and calls him the Son of God, show me the text where he overturns that the nations are nothing. Show me the text that says Israel or Abraham's seed is just as good as the next man's seed. We're asking our people who are our critics and our counterparts in this walk, show us your text. Because all we're hearing is a bunch of commentary, a bunch of Greek exegesis, a bunch of fancy pagan seminary terms, and you're doing a bunch of talking and you're not doing any reading. So that's what we're doing here, family. We're trying to wake up our nation, strangers as well. Just want to put that out there.
I appreciate you, Mara. I really appreciate it because it's a lot, and it's good to make sure we get the proper context out there of what we're trying to convey. So continuing on this theme about the strangers and the other nations, and I actually want to go to the Septuagint after this and ask a question. But it says in Ezekiel, it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, the land, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall begat children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. So we see here that the nations that sojourn and cleave to the covenant keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and recognize the order that the Most High has set. They will be given an inheritance by the Most High's people, which is us. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall ye give him his inheritance, saith Yahweh Elohim. Now, Marah, just for my own personal clarity and just to make it more sense, the Septuagint, verse 22, the same chapter, it says, ye shall cast the lot upon it for yourselves, and the strangers that sojourn in the midst of you, who have begotten children in the midst of you, and they shall be to you as natives among the children of Israel. They shall eat with you in their inheritance in the midst of the tribes of Israel. And verse 23 says, and they shall be in the tribe of proselytes among the proselytes that are with them, and there you shall give them an inheritance. So my question was, what does that mean as far as the tribe of proselytes among the proselytes?
You just read that out of the Septuagint.
Can
you repeat it? Because I just missed it.
No problem. Verse 23 says, and they shall be in the tribe of proselytes among the proselytes that are with them. There shall you give them an inheritance, saith Yahweh Elohim.
Wow. Wow. That's another one. That's 47 and 22.
23, 22, and 23. Cause I just put this screen up this morning and I was like, oh man, I ain't have time to do the
Wow.
Septuagint. And so then I checked the Septuagint before the class started and I was like, well, that's a little bit different, but I just didn't off the top of my head know about what it meant for the tribe of proselytes. And I figured I would ask you to help me with that part.
Yeah, so wow, I never checked this verse in the Septuagint. All praises for Bereans. So the um the pagan word tribe is not exclusive to Israel. The word tribe was a just a normal term for all the words. The modern word race, that's very modern. That came with the racist German. I don't even want to call him a scientist, but the racist German scientist invented the word race, RACE. In the ancient times, the word tribes described everybody. What tribe are you from? I'm from whatever tribe, no matter what you look like. So this phrase tribe of proselytes is saying the nations that we convert to our way of life. We're gonna assign them an area. We're gonna give them some inheritance from us. So these are not these are not uh like has been taught. You see the strength. No, these are people, the nations who didn't get destroyed by the king. We're giving them some inheritance. Wow, wow.
And that keeps it in context when I could have I like I said it's this is actually a to be continued, but Isaiah I think is 14 and the strangers who servants and handmaids in the kingdom. And like you said, basically for someone to inherit these things, because I've actually heard someone who is Hebrew and they were mentioning that you don't have to cleave to the nation of Israel if you're a stranger for you to receive salvation. And I'm like, what? So this is making sense that your inheritance and your lot will be given to you by the tribe that you sojourn with. And you said that the tribe of proselytes just means that the people from the other nations who we have taught our ways, and
Con,
they will willingly and openly accept the hierarchy in the kingdom, and they will get a place that is treated very well. So I hope Miss Corinne also seen all of these things because um, between this and of course the original Torah laws about the strangers and then what Edris said about the other nations as a whole, I hope that answers the question about what about the other nations. So now I wanted to finish this off with the king himself, Malak Nawah Yahweh Shai. If I could borrow Abshayah one more time, brother, if you still there.
I'm here.
I just wanted to get some of the language of what the king Yahweh Shai was saying. And did he come and change anything from the Old Testament or pertaining to the flesh of the nation? So if we could start with Revelation 1 and 1, and that's the end of the so-called, Bible. And let's see what the king is saying.
Revelation 1:1 reads, the revelation of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, which the Most High gave unto him to show unto his servants
To show
thing,
unto his servants
things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angels unto his servant John.
Khan. So we're seeing that the Messiah is sent here and he's delivering a message to show unto his servants. So who are the servants of Yahushai and Yahweh the Father. Isaiah 60, and there's a lot of scriptures, but I just chose a few. Isaiah 63 and 17.
I got that too.
Go ahead.
Isaiah 63:17. O Yahweh, why hast thou made us to err from thy ways, and hardened our heart from thy ear? Return for thy servants' sake.
For thy servants' sake.
The tribes of thine inheritance.
And we know that this here is Isaiah speaking on behalf of the nation of Israel, because this is the so-called Old Testament. I think even many Christian believers would at least admit that Isaiah was an Israelite and he was speaking to his people when he was writing this. And we're gonna, and we know it's some cockamamie doctrine out there, but we're gonna make it more black and white. But I just wanted this verse because he's asking, he said, return for your servant's sake. And we know that the Son, Yahushai, is returning upon the earth a second time. And his revelation was to his servants. And then his return for thy servant's sake is what Isaiah was writing down. So I just wanted to put that in there to show that this return is for a particular reason and it's for a particular people. So let's see what Leviticus 25 and 55 says about the servants.
Got it. Leviticus 25:55. For unto me the children of Israel are servants.
Read it again.
For unto me the children of Israel are servants. They are my servants, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. I am the Most High, your Elohim.
Wow. There it is. That's a morah right there, black and white. I don't even gotta explain it. He said, for unto me the children of Israel are servants. They are my servants, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. So Revelation, the end of the book, is saying that Yahushai is sent to show the servants, his servants, the things to come. Isaiah is saying that he's asking a return for the servant's sake. Leviticus, the Most High, is saying Israel is his servants. And then we want to hit Matthew 1 and 21 to just, this is just a small part of another class that I got about who the Messiah has come for. And we know 1 and 21. Go ahead and read that out.
Matthew 1:21. And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Yahushai, for he shall save his people from their sins.
So the prophecy, the before he even came upon the scene, was told that he was going to save his own people from their sins. So far we're seeing, like, and that's why I'm glad I can speak for myself. Reading this thing for myself, I was able to see the context that this is one congruent story that's going on here, from the so-called old to the so-called new, so from the so-called apocrypha and to the so-called lost books like Jubilees, etc. And the Messiah himself is on the scene, or approaching the scene, and the language so far is still the same. So let's hit Hebrews 13 up and see what Shawwal, or whoever finished writing this book to the Hebrews, said about Yahushai.
Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ, or Yahushai HaMashiach, the same yesterday and today and forever.
So Uncle Shawal or Paul or whoever finished this book to the Hebrews is saying that Yahushua Mashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So Revelations is telling us that he came to show his servants. Matthews 1:21 is saying that he is come to save his people from their sins. And if he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, what would be the difference and how would that change at any point in time, at bare minimum, at least until the second coming, at bare minimum, because we'll have things that may have not even been written explained to us at that point. But at bare minimum, with what we have access to, how can the purpose of the Messiah change if he's the same yesterday, today, and forever? So for a little bit more context, can we get Matthew 15, verse 22 through 24?
Matthew 15, 22 through 24 reads, "And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel."
See, right here, I would like to ask people, is this fair? Is this racist? Because this is the Messiah himself saying, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And his disciples saying, get rid of this crying woman. So is this a skin doctrine? Is this like racism here? Like, what's going on here? But when you understand this thing in full context, you understand that the Messiah had a mission and a purpose given unto him by the Father. His mission was to deal with his people. But because this lady, if we continued on, verse 25, he ends up blessing this lady and helping her, but he wanted to let her know that she wasn't first priority. And just for the sake of it, I'll just read verse 25. Then came she and worshiped him, saying, Master, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. So now he's calling her names according to this text. So is like, if we really just slow down and just think about what's going on here, this whole we are the world thing, at least according to the text, just don't make sense. Because if it did, this shouldn't even have been in the text to begin with. And she said, It is true, master, but the dogs eat the crumbs of the table which fall, or eat the crumbs which fall from the master's table. Now, this does not have to be a literal thing to say that the other nations are dogs. No, just like Ezekiel said, someone who can humble themselves just like this woman and understand the order, not because we're anything great, but just because this is the order that the Most High has set up. This is what he chose. If they can understand that order and humble themselves, then they will be given a lot of inheritance in the nation as well. And verse 28, Yahushua answered and said, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. So she still received the blessing. And the Gentiles or the strangers can still receive a physical salvation if they decide to humble themselves and just follow the order of the Most High, not follow me, not follow Abijah or any Hebrew man or woman specifically, but just the order that the Most High has set up by acknowledging the people, acknowledging the covenant, acknowledging the commandments, and keeping the ways of the Most High. Then their ways, their salvation or their inheritance will be given as well. And lastly, anybody had any comments? as we this is getting ready to be, I think, the last slide, or maybe two.
I did on these scriptures.
Go
I
ahead.
did. When you see these scriptures put together, and even if we just narrow it down to the ones pertaining to Yahushua, or the things that he said. So those who profess to be Christians, meaning you're a follower of Christ, but yet we see the foundation of Christianity are based on the things that Paul said. Now, even when we say that, we're not speaking against Paul at all. We're just saying that the Christian doctrine is founded on the things that he said, which are twisted. You're getting Paul wrong because, again, they don't understand that even what Peter said. Hey, you got to be careful with what Paul said. These things that we're saying are hard to understand. And you got to know what Paul is actually saying. So Christians don't understand your doctrine is based off of things that he said, but yet you're professing to be a Christian. No, you're a Paulian. That's what you really are. and you have to understand, if you're a Christian, then go back to what was said about Christ. Go back to what Christ said himself. And if you read that account that we just read in Matthew 15, 22 to 24, you will see that, oh, shoot, Yahushua is a nationalist. And that's not in the negative sense at all. Because what a nationalist is, by definition, it is a person who strongly identifies with their own nation and vigorously supports its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. That's what a nationalist is. So we have a earth full of people who are nationalists because they believe in their own people, in their own customs, in their own ways freely. But when they see us waking up and they see us really believing in the Messiah and Yahushua the way the book says, and even he says, believe in me as the scriptures have said, or how are the scriptures are being written. That's what we do. Don't get mad at us because we know how to read the book the way it's really supposed to be read. He's a nationalist. He came for his people. Matthew 1:21.
That definition you gave of nationalist and the way that you expounded,
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
That was just very, it just fits perfect, man. So I appreciate it. And that just makes sense because even in this nation, just like with Trump and all of that stuff, these people should be enthusiastic about their nation because this is the lot of their inheritance. They should fight to the death for it, but we should be allowed to do the same thing for ours. So that's all we're saying. Like, and the Son of Man, the Son of Yahweh, is also a nationalist, and he is establishing the Father's kingdom. And that's, thank you, Father, because that's what Adonai to me is about. The is the first, or the leader, or the strength, the one, and then to the doorway. So the first to go on the path or through the doorway, Adonai, and the seed, meaning in this context to establish. So the first on the path or the doorway or through the doorway to establish the work, which is the arm. Yahushua is the one to establish the work of the Spirit of the Most High. And that's why we call him our judge in the Most High, or our judge in Yah. Adonai, Yahushua, is the one to establish the Most High's work. And he's establishing that work in the earth through his people. So as we wrap it up, the message I didn't really know how to end it, but I just wanted to leave it with a message. And the verse we brought out last week, really, if you read that thing in context, it's just so strong to me. And especially now, everything that we brought up into this point with the history, the backstory, and the precepts this verse should make a lot more sense to all of us. So it's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13 through 17. Verse 13 says, but we are bound to give thanks always to Yahweh for you, brethren, beloved of Adonai, Yahweh Shai, because Yah hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through the sanctification, the righteousness of the Spirit, your Ruach, and the belief of the truth, the commandments, and the Son. So the Most High has from the beginning chosen us to salvation. He already knows the end from the beginning. And your salvation is through the sanctification, the renewing of the Spirit, and the belief of the truth, which is the commandments and the Son. Verse 14, whereunto he called you, he called you out of the world by or through our gospel, Basar Noah. He called you by our gospel. Who is this our in this sentence? It's the people who are in verse 13, those who are beloved of the Messiah and the Most High has chosen from the beginning. So the fact that, or this notion that the gospel is the good news for the whole world is incorrect, and is proven incorrect even in the New Testament, so-called by Paul, because he says that he called us the beloved of the Most High Son from the beginning through salvation by our good news, our gospel. And the gospel that we are called by is going to lead us to the obtaining of the glory by our master, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, or who they ignorantly call Jesus the Christ. So we are being called out of the world by the gospel to the obtaining of glory, because earlier in the session, Marah spoke and said the promise was that the children would be brought back to the state that Adam had before he fell. So this is the same thing that Shawwal is saying here, whereunto he called you by our good news to the obtaining of glory by our master Yahweh Shai Mashiach. Verse 15, therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which you have been taught, whether by word, like what we're doing now, or epistle or letters, which is what we're reading, a letter that Paul wrote to his people in Thessalonica. Verse 16, now our master Yahweh Shai Mashiach himself and Yah, even our Father, which have loved us. Let me read that slower. Now our master Adonai, Yahweh Shai Mashiach himself, and Yah, our Father. There's a distinction there, which have loved us and have given us everlasting consolation and good hope through grace. Verse 17, comfort your hearts and establish you in every good word and work. And with that, I yield the floor. Any questions, comments, and concerns? Again, there'll be probably more meat to this bone sometime in the future, but I hope that the message was conveyed well and clearly, that from the so-called Old Testament to the so-called New to the lost books and the so-called Apocrypha, all of our ancestors and forefathers understood the order that the Most High set, and they asked us to hold fast to the things that we have been taught, or the traditions, which is the commandments that was given to us, to some by word and some by letter. So I just wanted to convey that message. We are the chosen people, the seed of the Most High is chosen, from Abraham, Yatazak or Isaac, and Yaquab or Jacob. And I just wanted to ask the question, because the Most High himself chose this and set this order. Does that make him unfair? Or is this something that we are making up when we see that we're just going based off the text here? So if there's a question about something being unfair, that's something that the people will have to take up with the word of the Most High. And I feel that that message has been conveyed, and it's really shown through the conversation that Ezra's had with the Most High, how this thing is to play out and why. The other nations, all men came from Adam. All men were given a way or a chance to choose to follow the Most High. And because they didn't, the Most High forsook all but kept one grape of the cluster. And that is his nation, who he allowed us to be called by his name, Yashar Allah, to be called surname with the Son as rulers in him and in the earth, and established in his earthly kingdom, which is the kingdom of heaven placed in the earth, the land of Zion, Jerusalem. And with that, I yield. Go ahead.
So, can you pull a couple of precepts you already had about the law is a life, so we can highlight the natural original language of the Bible?
One is in the chat there.
What we got?
Second Ezra chapter 14, verse 29.
That's a good 17:11. I got one.
Yeah, just bring like let's get like 4 of them, y'all, and let's read 4 of them, and we're gonna break this Hebrew word down.
All right, since this was in the chat, I'll just read that one first. It says, "Our fathers," Second Ezra chapter 14, verse 29 and 30. "Our fathers at the beginning were strangers in Egypt, from whence they were delivered." Verse 30 says, "And they received the law of life, which they kept not, which ye also have transgressed after them." But the punchline is they received the law of life.
They received the law of life. Second Ezra what 7?
Chapter 14, verse 29 and 30.
So that's one witness. They received the law of life. What else we got?
I'm gonna let Abishai go, and then I'll come back with the one from Baruch.
Yeah, the one that I have is saying the same thing you just said. It's Sirach, Ecclesiasticus 17:11. It says, "Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage."
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
For a heritage. It's your heritage to have this law.
And to have this life. And now when you think about that, the heritage to receive the law of life, now it make more sense why Ezra said the world created for us.
So that's 2 witnesses, right? How many more we got?
Then Baruch chapter 3 and verse 9, it says, "Hear, or Shema, Israel, Yasha Allah, the commandments of life, and give ear to understanding."
So I have hope for your commandments. They are life.
No, this one is a different one. I think this one, I'm just looking through the book and I already got them circled. So I'm just looking at ones that I got circled. Chapter 3 and verse 9 says, "Hear, Israel, the commandments of life, and give ear to understand wisdom."
So that's that's a 3rd witness that's associating life with the commandments, right? What
And
else
then
we got?
I got one more. Chapter 4. It says, chapter 4, I think is what I had in the class. It says, "This is the book of the commandments of Yah, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, but such as leave it shall die."
So that's Baruch chapter 4 telling us that the commandments is life. And there's many more all over the Bible, so-called Bible. Psalms 119 is a whole love letter. It's a whole love letter to the law, to the Torah, right? So the pagan word that you would hear the fish people, the 1948ers say, and people who learn the Greek alliterations of our language, they use a word called mitzvah. Mitzvah. And mitzvah has no power, it has no meaning. But when you understand that he's given us matazawa, the ma right here, the ma represents water, blood, fluid, power, the flow. So matazawa, the Most High's commandments, is the flow, is the power. This character is the taza. It's a trail, it's a path, and then you reach your mark, taza. You're on a path, you're on a trail, and then you're going to reach your destination. So for us, set apart people of the Most High, returning to our set apart language, matazawa, commandments, the flow, the power that leads to life, and this is a wa. This character that looks like a slingshot or looks like a pagan Y, it's our W sound. It's the wa. This glyph is actually a 10th peg, and this is a conjunction. We add things with this. So commandments is the flow, the power that leads to joining you to Ha. Ha is life, the Rawak, Hamashiach, Ha Yahweh. This is Matazawa. So all these 4 precepts that we just, and this is just 4, all of them are pointing to life because in Hebrew the word is Matazawa, the flow, the power that leads us and adds us to the spirit. The reason why the Ha represents spirit is because when you say words that begin with H sound, you hear your breath, you hear your spirit. So Matazawa, the Father gave us instructions that has power that's going to lead us and make sure we reach our destination, and it's going to add us or join us to the Most High Spirit, the Ha. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It makes perfect sense because I'm
Yes.
saying that it's the power, the way, because the way they're saying it, and they're saying, keep the commandments and thou shalt enter into life, or the commandments or the law is life. So now it just makes so much more sense because it's saying the way to life is by the power that leads and secures you to the spirit of the Most High. The commandments is the thing, the power. The spirit of the Most High gave the commandments. So it's the power that leads and secures you to the spirit, which the Most High Spirit is what gives life. It makes so much sense to me. These people saying that we don't have the real language. I don't know what's going on, but when I see this, it is every single time 100% lines up with what the word is saying and what the definition means. So to me, it's very powerful, and all praises.
If it's made up language, I'm very open to a breakdown of mitzvah. Can you show me how mitzvah means commandments? Can you show me how mitzvah means life? I'm just very open. I'm humble. I'm not ashamed to say I'm wrong. But these people, they offer rebuttals with no scholarship. Just standing on your soapbox saying, "Nah, that ain't right. They're wrong." But we got pages upon pages of receipts, and that's what stokes my fire, because we got people we love innocent, thinking that these people are holy people, and they're not giving you any meat that can sustain you. You're just saying, no, that's not right. That can't be right. These people have no education. These people haven't went to seminary. But our explanations, our breakdowns are coming from Abba Yah. by Hashem Yahushai. And you can't refute, they can't refute nothing we're presenting. So this is why we live by the commandments, family. The commandments, the Torah. And that's another thing, going back to um, this Christian channel, this pastor kept using Mark's phrase, missing the mark. You know, sometimes we all miss the mark. And you know what I'm hearing when he say missing the mark, I'm hearing Torah. So you're full of Greek seminary fluid, and you're coming against the Most High's holy commandment, and you think you're going to win life in the end, and you're going to win eternal damnation. So that's why I take this walk seriously. That's why I get, charged up, because I want to save our people. So we live by the commandments. We live by the Matazawah, because this is the path that's going to lead us to the Father. That's Matazawah, family.